What's good and welcome to Believe in Celtics. I'm Warren Shaw. He is the great Gary Washburn. We're your host and resources for everything Boston Celtics this season and all seasons. Gary, what's good, my G? How's everything going on?
Everything's good. Everything's good. I hope you had a happy new year and brought it in the way you wanted. I'm sure you had some nice weather down in South Florida.
Sure.
Actually, it was okay here. Just to, watched whatever shows now, Dick Clark, and watched Dick Clark. Ryan Seacrest. Yeah, with Dick Clark. With it's still Dick's name on it. You're always going to have that title. But yeah, it was just mellow. And now that the basketball season's kicking in, watch a little college football. I don't know what you thought of those games. If you caught those games, two semifinals, both pretty exciting games going on. Final play, both of them. But yeah, enjoying the season starting now. Now we're starting the attention shifting to the NBA.
Yep.
And now you're starting to see we're approaching halfway. So teams have their identities. There's some, we're looking at we talk about it. We'll go around the league, talk about teams, but a lot of disappointments, some good, some bad, some MVP candidates. Everything's starting to emerge here, Warren. So I think that's the good part. We're done with the early season. It's too early to tell. Wait till we're in January now, so we're kicking in.
Absolutely, right? So I think, as you alluded to, those narratives, those conversations, while I think it was you I was speaking with maybe not too long ago, I think the MVP conversation had been kind of tampered. Usually in the NBA season, the second game of the season, oh, this guy's an MVP. And I think everyone's kind of learned like it's too early. But now as we're 30 plus games in, turn to January, as alluded to, the sports calendar starting to turn toward the NBA in a lot of ways. That conversation is starting to ramp up, as is All-Star, which will be a good part of our conversation here as well, too, here on Believe in Celtics. But as always, before we kind of get into the rest of it, make sure we do our plugs. Make sure you follow me at Shaw Sports NBA. Make sure you follow Gary at G Washburn Globe. Make sure you follow Gary, his writing over at the Boston Globe as well, too. Give our show a 5-star rating on whatever your favorite podcast platform is. Like, subscribe if you're watching us on YouTube. And make sure you follow Believe at Believe Network and or Believe Sports. So, Gary, we're going to, kind of tip things off here a little bit, too, and call our segment here, What's the Deal? Team Green got a lot of stuff kind of going on. News of today, as we record, Joe Mazzula was actually named Coach of the Month. I know, you're a bestie, but, the Celtics.
I already sent him congratulations and a nice gift. No.
Did he reply?
I will speak to him tomorrow. I will, give them a hearty. I'm sure they get a plaque or something.
Yeah.
Coach of the Month or a certificate. But well earned. Best record in the NBA.
Sure.
Some impressive wins in December. They didn't go through the skid that they went through the December before. Remember, they lost those 2 home games to Orlando and kind of struggled for a bit. But they responded after that Warriors loss. I know they lost their last game against Oklahoma City. But that was January. But I was impressed. Good job for the team and for Mazzula in December.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, seeing it, not much of a big surprise. And Ty Lue out there over on the West Coast, winning it for the Clippers side, as the Clippers have turned things around as well, too. So, some Celtic ties there, if you will, too, if you want to try that in. And speaking of Joe Mazzula, the guy who he replaced on the sidelines, Brad Stevens, spoke today at a press conference. Any tidbits you can talk about, from that presser today that you saw as it's the first time we've heard from Mr. Stevens since the beginning of the season?
Yeah, Warren, nothing earth-shattering. He didn't talk for like a reason with him, no announcements. I just think he gave us a state of the team. I think he really likes his team. And, the thing is, Warren, they have limited resources for which people they go out there and get Kelly Olynyk, go out there and get some $18 million guy. Like, I think what fans have to understand, if you don't understand, I'm sure you've read the salary and a lot of our listeners and viewers are familiar with the cap.
Sure.
And such a situation being that second apron. They can't go out and get, a $15 million player unless they give somebody up. And it would have to be, a package or something like that with like a Peyton Pritchard. Like they're not not giving up Derek White. They're not giving up Tatum Brown. That's funny. Right. Let's move on from that. It had to be like a Horford and a Peyton Pritchard. Okay, so you'd have to decide that you want to move 2 rotation pieces for a guy who's, let's say, making 18 million. That's almost 18 million. We're not talking about we're not talking about a dynamic player. We're talking about Zach LaVine or something, right?
Right.
So the Celtics resources are limited. They have a $6.2 million trade exception from the Grant Williams deal with Dallas Mavericks. They can use. But as Brad pointed out today, that's a difficult salary in today's NBA because even the lower paid players make more than that.
Sure.
And what if people aren't familiar with a trade exception, that's like a gift certificate. That's like a holder, like a money card. It's 6.2 million, but you can't go over it, you can't blend it, you can't throw it in with 3 other players. Like that could get you a player, and then the team that gets it has a year to use it, and they can use it to acquire players. It's kind of passed on. So the guys who are making 6.2 million and less, as Brad pointed out today, were either like rookies, guys on the rookie deals, or guys that are kind of a valuable player because that's a low salary in our league. Now, 20 years ago, 5 million was a grip.
Yeah.
6 million was a grip.
Still a grip to me, Gary, but all right.
Grip to us. I'd like 6.2 million. You can use that on me. I'll give you 5 minutes a game. But you have to figure out who is going to make that deal, what else you would have to include. And then with the Celtics being a luxury tax, a $6 million player probably costs you $20 million in luxury taxes. Yeah. They're almost in the neighborhood of the Warriors. I mean, they're in a deep neighborhood. That second apron limits you, and that they wanted to even things out. They don't have revenue sharing like baseball, so the teams who spend and the teams who don't spend in smaller markets, they wanted to even things out a little bit. So they made it more limiting for teams to spend a lot of money. So if you're looking for the Celtics to acquire, as I said, go out and get DeMar DeRozan, go out and get Zach LaVine. Like, no. Calm down. This is the team they're going to roll with. And Brad said that they need a wing. But he also added it could be a guy who's already on the roster. Okay. So that points to me to Oshae Brissett. Oshae Brissett is a guy, very slow start. I think he was 1 for his first 11 from the 3 in December. He took 7 threes, but he hit 5 of them. Okay, so he's beginning. It's a small sample size, but he's beginning to break out of his slump. So I think that was a call out to Oshae to say, okay, Oshae, this is what we need. This is what we got you for. Step the game up.
Yes, sir.
You can fill that role that we need as a wing, a 3-and-D guy. If not, by February 8th, the Celtics might go out there and get somebody. And there'll be offers out there. There'll be players probably available once teams decide to blow it up. A player that they could look at, I think they should look at is Saddiq Bey from the Atlanta Hawks, depending on what Atlanta's going to do. Atlanta is one of those, they're in a real strange position where they're not, I think they're 14-20, something like that. They just beat Oklahoma City, so they've shown the ability to play well, but they're also a bad home team. They've been one of the more disappointing teams in the league this year. I think we all saw in the playoffs and thought last year when they pushed the Celtics to 6 and thought, wow, when Atlanta gets everybody together, they'll be a pretty good club. Not Eastern Conference Finals, but maybe a first round, second round team. They're not playing like that this year. So do the Hawks start compiling assets? Do they move with DeJounte Murray? They've had injury. They just got Jaylen Johnson back. DeAndre Hunter is now hurt. So look out for some of these guys. If you're a Celtic fan, you're like, okay, look at the guys with the salaries, 6.2 million and under. Okay. Stop living in the Park Place. We got to get Pacific. We got to get Pacific Avenue or
Baltic.
We got to get Baltic. Look at the low rent districts because that's the player. The Celtics are going to need to get a player who doesn't make a whole lot of money. And it might be on a value deal, expiring deal, a guy on a bad team who's like, listen, can you move me, please? Like, can I go somewhere and win a chip? Like, all this stuff will develop in the next 4 weeks, or as we know, like things that we never thought, imagine would happen in January 8th. By February 8th, the trade deadline, they happen. We've seen some tremendous deals happen, shocking deals that just developed in a week or two, or even a day or two. So Stevens just basically told us, like, hey, that's what we're looking for. but our resources are limited. He really likes the job Joe is doing. He really likes, obviously, the additions, Porzingis, Drew Holiday. He's really high in Derek White. I think everybody's high in Derek White. So I think it was a very positive assessment of the game, of the team after 33 games. And now January gets tough. We can look at the schedule down the road. Utah would not be easy. Utah, so a very big team. 2 against Indiana. Then you come back and face the Timberwolves and the Bucks in a back-to-back. So there's a lot that the Celtics are going to have to accomplish this month. I know there's a road trip, Dallas, Houston, Miami later this month. So a lot of things going on. But I think Stevens was more positive, and one more little nugget. He said he liked all the non-guarantee guys. I think Lamar Stevens and Luke Cornett are on non-guaranteed deals, and I think Delano Banton's deal is partially guaranteed. So he said he likes all those guys. Now, will they create another roster spot and part ways with one of those guys? I mean, he could say he likes those guys, but they got until Wednesday to guarantee those 2 contracts. And also, with people
non-guaranteed, right?
Yeah, because they have an open roster spot. Now, could you use that open roster spot, Warren, on upgrading Neemias Queta's contract to a standard NBA deal? Because you've seen the team, I've seen the team. I would want him on my playoff roster. Remember, like 2-way guys, it's kind of a it's a half contract in a sense. It's a night. 2-way guys you get treated like a real NBA player. You get into games, you score, but you can't make the playoff roster, and you can only be active on the roster for 50 games. Active. Right. That means if you're active and don't play, that counts. So the Celtics have to figure out what to do with Queta, how much they want to conserve his games. And I know he's running them up because he's active and he's playing. I think he's up to 20 games now, almost. So they have to figure out, and if it's staying in an NBA deal, it doesn't matter. They can play him all the games and play in the playoffs. But I think he's somebody on the playoff roster, so they've got to contemplate whether to upgrade his contract to a standard NBA deal and use that last roster spot, or say, you know what, hey, Lamar Stevens, it's been nice, but we need some flexibility. Maybe sign him to a 10-day if down the road, something like that. I think they like him. So they got some little bit of decisions to make. But the key to thing is important because I think that they're going to want him on the playoff roster. You need that extra big. And I just think he's played. I think he's shown he's better than just kind of a 2-way guy. I think he's shown that he can play some considerable minutes and play a decent role.
Yeah, Gary, I think those are great points, and I think it's interesting that Brad would even allude to the fact that it's a wing, whether that person be on the roster or not, because I think we all went into like, hey, what are they doing in the front court situation? We have our varying opinions on Cornette and the overall value that he may provide, but Queta has kind of emerged here. And then maybe as the viable person to kind of soak up some of those minutes, especially, when you get into playoffs, you need another rotation. And even as injury insurance, or even rest insurance, not to say injury, but rest insurance for Al and KP as well, too. The Bey thing has my mind kind of circling because I was alluded to, and I was like, oh yeah, he's on the last year of his rookie deal. Atlanta did not extend him, before the deadline here. So that's a very interesting situation. And I think as a guy who can absolutely fill it up, and we talked about bench scoring being such a big need, I think that'd be an ideal candidate if they can make that work. But again, what does it cost, especially with the locker room chemistry that they've built here, up to this point, already shuffling so many guys into the mix. So that is something that they absolutely need to do their due diligence on. I think all very, very, very great, amazing points there, Gary. You touched on the overall schedule here too. And, let's just kind of breeze through that. The OKC game was a big game. A lot of people were watching that one. They end up losing that, I guess, kind of almost come back after, kind of getting shellacked there in the third quarter a little bit. Really surprising part of that game and early in the third when SGA goes out and OKC actually extended the lead. Guys like Case and Wallace shooting threes and, doing their thing. These are good NBA players. This is no disrespect to that OKC team. I think they might be one of the deepest teams in the league. And I don't say that, sheepishly. I stand by that, even with the young talent that they have, a little bit unproven. But as you alluded to, Utah coming up next, 2 games against the suddenly hot in terms of defensive wise. Indiana Pacers, Tyrese Halliburton, obviously bidding for, a starting spot as an all-star as well too. Milwaukee, Minnesota, like really, really big games coming up here. So your thoughts on the overall stretch? We know Boston has more or less answered a lot of the challenges that have been faced before them, but not necessarily going game by game, but just kind of like taking this stretch of games, for the most part outside of Utah. But even there's some bite there with Will Hardy, former assistant coach, kind of coming into there. What are you looking for Boston here to just overall competitiveness? Dang, even looking down the line, I forgot our guys coming back here. Udoka coming back to the Garden. Shortly after that Milwaukee game as well too. So a lot of games tied even from an emotional standpoint for Boston. What are you looking for during this stretch?
Yeah, you want to see them play good basketball, put together some good games. The Oklahoma City game, I felt like I don't know if they didn't read the scouting report, or I just think they might have, not I'll say taken them lightly. I'm not going to say that, but maybe not been as familiar with some of those guys because it was just too many easy shots, I felt like, Warren. I felt like, I'm not talking about SGA. I think they knew SGA is a monster. He is, okay, MVP candidate. But just too many easy shots from guys like Josh Giddey, just getting into the paint. Okay, you'll give me the 10-footer? I'll take the 10-footer. Jalen Williams, both Jalen Williams, like you said, Casey Wallace, guys like Aaron Wiggins, like a lot. I think they had 11 or 12 guys that scored in that game. And it was obviously a game that was meaningful. So there was no garbage time here. We're talking about the deep roster, and I think the Celtics kind of woke up 8 minutes left and down 110-92, and then, had a chance. If Porzingis' foot doesn't cross the line, it might have been a different game. They might have had one shot to win it at the end. But I just thought defensively they weren't very good. I thought Jaylen wasn't as sharp, 0 for 8 from 3, and just kind of kept taking threes. So I thought that was a flat performance, one of their flatter performances, and they still only lost by 4. So, I don't think you take a moral victory, but I think you say, listen, we took the best shot from the second best team, one of the hotter teams in the league, and we lost by 4. And our number 2 guy went 0 for 8 from 3. And Drew Holiday, I think, had 7 points. I think he was like a -15. I don't think he had much of an impact in that game either. So you want to bounce back from that against Utah. And they want to bounce back from that against the Indiana Pacers in those 2 games. I think that'll be very interesting. And they should be mad a little bit. Mad like what happened in Indiana during the play-in tournament. Sure. And Indiana celebrated like they had, kind of won a playoff series. And what are you going to do now? Are you going to punch first? Are you going to – I want to see the Celtics restore some order here and not, go 3-3 or taking these teams. Utah, get that dub. Indiana, it's hard to beat a team twice in these 2-game series, but take the first one and then take your chances in the second. Then you got Minnesota 2 nights later, Ant-Man, and then you got the Bucks. So the Bucks are going to be ready for them, right? It's a TNT game, showdown. People are doubting the Bucks. The Bucks have not played well. Not played good defense. I think we saw that. I don't know if you saw that one play where Halliburton kind of drove past Lillard, and Lillard was kind of it was like an Olay defense. I think he was trying to talk to the ref and then just literally took his eye off Halliburton and drove right into the paint for a layup. So the Bucks are going to have something to prove. So the Celtics should be the team, Warren, with something to prove. Hey, we're the number 1 team in the league. We're going to prove it. We're going to whip some butt here. Slice through this stretch, and then obviously Ime Udoka comes back. It's gonna be a very emotional game. Sure. But the Celtics are a little bit different team. No Marcus, no Grant. Some of these guys that he coached are gone, but still a very emotional game. And who knows how the fans are going to react when he's introduced with the starting lineups or how that goes. And I'm sure there's going to be a lot of storylines there. But I just think the Celtics right now, take it to that next level. You've played a good 33 games, 26-7, best record in the league. Now, take it to a next level. Go 5-1, 6-1, or whatever in this stretch, and show that you're the best team in the league.
Yeah, I'm gonna obviously double down here on what you're saying there too. I think with the Pacers being as hot as they are, and they already played the Bucks 5 times and 4-1. I don't understand what's happening with the schedule this year. It's
Yeah.
like some really weird situations going on. But then yeah, Boston will now see them for a third and one. No, this will be a fourth and fifth time, or is that right?
They played twice,
Twice.
Mm-hmm.
Twice, yeah. So third and fourth, right? The in-season tournament was the second time. So yeah, a lot of games versus a very, very hot team as well too. And then obviously trying to avenge the loss in Minnesota, that OT loss in the beginning part of the season, where Anthony Edwards kind of D'd up Tatum there. But Timberwolves are slipping, but again, I don't think that's a team that's going to obviously take Boston lightly. But you want to kind of get them back a little bit too, and then improve that dominance. And as you alluded to, a back-to-back, that's tough. That's tough. Back-to-back Minnesota and Milwaukee. That's schedule makers did Boston no favors. But at the end of the day, if you're truly a championship level team, they will actually have to, rise to the proverbial occasion here. So that'll do it for this segment here on what's the deal with Boston. On the other side of this break, we'll actually flip around and kind of go around the association. We'll actually still have some Celtics related news here. We'll be right back here on Believe in Celtics.
Are you ready to step up your style without compromising the planet? Introducing the exciting partnership between Blueview Footwear and the 19 Media Group Network. Just visit bit.ly/Blueview19 to start your sustainable style journey. Our friends over at Blueview Footwear are renowned for introducing the world's first fully biodegradable sneaker. By using plant-based plastics, they are leading a revolution in cleaner materials and manufacturing. They have sleek and contemporary styles that cater to a wide range of tastes. Blueview Footwear believes that fashion and sustainability can coexist harmoniously. Explore their incredible collection of eco-friendly footwear by visiting bit.ly/Blueview19. If you let us know you made a purchase, we'll shout you out on our next show. Again, just visit bit.ly/Blueview19 today, and you'll see the ultimate collaboration of fashion, sustainability, and media excellence.
And we're back here, and on this week's edition of Around the Association on Believe in Celtics, Gary and I are going to do exactly that. Whip around the association with some things that have happened. I'm going to go a little bit out of order here, G, because some news happened since the last time we recorded. I believe I was actually talking to a good friend of mine, Gerald Brown, who hosts a Sirius XM radio. He said he had spoken with you over the weekend, right when OG Anunoby, or right as OG Anunoby was being moved.
Right, like 30 minutes before the trade was announced. I was like, Toronto got to blow it up. And they took
Gary,
my advice and blew it up.
Wow, you know what? we are kindred spirits. So I got to share this story as you bring it up. I was recording my other podcast, the Baseline, the NBA, general NBA one, and ironically, I actually went on a Raptors rampage, and my friend went on a Knicks rampage, individually talking about New Year's resolutions, what needed to happen, pick a direction, who are you going to be? Literally, as we're finishing up recording, that trade happens. So just like Nostradamus, so we ended up changing the final 20 minutes of that show to kind of like recap that trade. But interesting move, because we all saw the writing on the wall, especially from Toronto's standpoint. They've lost a couple players here without getting anything for it. OG is a guy who sees himself, and I don't know how you're going to feel about this analogy, but I'm going to say it anyway, right? I viewed, or what I heard was, OG kind of saw himself as a guy who can take on a bigger role, right? Mm-hmm. I'd say I'm going to liken it to, he thought he could maybe be Mikal Bridges in Brooklyn, right? He's like, hey, I'm still a defensive guy, but I can, lead an offense to some degree, so to speak. He goes to New York, where that's clearly not going to be the case. But people have said that he was willing to take a lesser role if it was New York for whatever reason. Your quick thoughts, on the deal, who wins, who loses? RJ Barrett, Canada native, gets to go back there quickly. I think is an underrated piece of this deal from the Toronto standpoint. A lot of teams would have been interested in him. But overall, is this a win-win for both teams, you think?
Yeah, people are saying that. I'm not particularly sure how. Like, I like Anunoby. Okay, like I saw Toronto the night before the trade, and they played. I mean, the Celtics didn't have Tatum, and I think they didn't have Horford, and the Raptors fell behind 40-20. Like, they played like dogs, and I just feel like that is a too talented of a team. And I don't know what you think of Toronto. I mean, I've seen Toronto from obviously the DeRozan and Lowry days, then to the bubble, to now, where they had, they're the championship team, then the bubble, but they still have talent. And so you look at a team with Siakam, Gary Trent Jr., solid ball player, Dennis Schroeder, Anunoby, Scotty Barnes. Like, I'm saying to myself, How are you falling behind 40-20 to the Celtics on a back? They were on a back-to-back. Remember, they had just beaten the Pistons in overtime. They're tired. No Tatum, and they are just balling up the Raptors. I thought this team needs to be broken up because something ain't right. The chemistry ain't there. They played like I just can't say it. Anything. They played like some dogs, and then they came back. And I'm not dogs in a good way. I'm talking about
not Pat Bev dogs.
No, not the dog you want on your team kind of dog. They played like some chumps, and they came back to take the lead in the fourth quarter and then lose by 2. And I'm just saying, like, this team just don't have it. It's just something's got to change. And I just think Anunoby's their more tradable piece. You could say Siakam. I don't know what they're going to do, but Toronto's got to start making some calls here. So I think bringing Barrett back to Canada, he'll be the most popular Raptor. He'll be a man amongst the community. And then Quigley, like you said, like I've seen Quigley kill the Celtics. Like that dude should put his Celtic tape all on for his free agency case because that dude, I've seen him score 24 points in 25 minutes. I thought that was a good deal for the Raptors just for the change of it. And I like Anunoby, but maybe not New York. Like I thought when he was in the bubble and I thought he was an emerging star, and it's never gotten to that point where like that dude's dropping 30, 35. Yeah. It's Siakam, and he's a good defender. He's physical. He's a physical specimen. He's a beast. Like you look at that Toronto team, and they're a bunch of tough. If you see Scotty Barnes, like Scotty Barnes is a big dude. So like when you look at Toronto, you're like, man, we're gonna get bruised and battered here. And then you put Pearl in the middle, and that dude's just a lumber. He's a bruiser. So I never understood why they couldn't win. And I'm not talking about be best record in the league, but they were like 12-19. I thought like that's a 19-12, 18-13 team, right? Like that's a team that should win more than half its games. So I think that Toronto just needed a change, and I think Quigley and Barrett are good options. I don't know what to make of, like, people, Precious Achiuwa, like, we've been waiting for Precious Achiuwa, who another guy on that team who underachieved, like we've been waiting for him. Remember, he was in Miami and it was working out, then he got thrown into the Lowry deal and it was supposed to work. Like, we're waiting for him. Malachi Flynn, Malachi Flynn, solid, backup guy. I don't think he'll make much of a splash, but I think both teams had to do something. Like Barrett, like remember, Warren. I mean, when Barrett was in Duke, he was supposed to be arguably the number one player in the country.
Yeah,
people were like, "Well, it's him or Zion." Like we ain't nobody say about Ja. Ain't nobody talk about Ja yet.
Right.
We didn't see Ja go act out in a good way until the NCAA tournament where he took they went to the second round, Sweet 16 or something like that, right? So Barrett was considered by some publications the number one player in that class. I think class of 17 or 18. I think class of 17, high school class of 17. So you're looking at like we haven't seen it. We've seen flashes, but we've also seen a guy struggle to shoot free throws. Like I struggle to struggle to hit threes. He's been inconsistent. So I want to see Barrett emerge behind Siakam as that number 2 or 3 guy, because Barnes is the guy. Okay.
Yeah, for sure.
We all know that. And then Siakam has still got mad game. Like, I still like his game. And then Barrett is an opportunity for you to call. And then Quigley, I think that's a good deal for them. Quigley, do you hand the keys to Quigley and go, you're going to be our starting point guard? Because we can go back, and we'll talk about this in a minute, the whole Gordon Hayward, and when we talk about the 19 team, right? And I'll ask the fans a question about that roster, and what if on that roster with another player who is looking for more minutes, didn't get it with the Celtics, but now got it with his new team, and is now emerge as a pretty good player with this new team.
Couldn't be talking about my young son Terry Rozier, could you?
Yes, exactly. Bingo, right? And I think Quigley was in a similar situation where he was like, okay, it's Brunson's team. I'm gonna be coming off the bench, but do you hand him the keys now and go, okay, Emmanuel, you're this point guard. You're our point guard. Handle things. Get this team together. So I like the possibilities for Toronto, probably a little bit more than New York, but I think we'll see what Anunoby can do. But with Randall and Brunson, like you're the number 3 guy automatically. Then you got DiVincenzo, Josh Hart. I don't know. I don't know what the Knicks are trying to do, Warren. Like, they just can't make enough moves to be a formidable contender. Everybody likes Brunson. That dude's a dog. Randall has played a lot better in the last month or so, right? Yeah. But they still are a team that you don't take seriously. And I don't know what they can do. They got 5 million draft picks. I think they got 1 fewer than Oklahoma City, 1 fewer first round pick. You got to do something. Is Anunoby that guy? I don't know.
Yeah, my guess here is that New York rides this out for this year, right? And see how it plays out and whether or not they want to commit long-term money to Anunoby, because one of the essential parts of the deal, at least from my standpoint, it is financially based. So whether you felt like RJ Barrett was underachieving or not, and he probably was, either way, you would re-sign him to a long-term deal. All right. So you get all that money off your books, and then you get to decide whether or not is Anunoby the guy or is he not? And then do you also make another move, whether or not, either way, you get that money off your books. It hurts to lose quickly for sure. But now you're kind of setting the stage, at least to say, all right, what is this team? And we know all the stuff. Anunoby, a big wing, can guard, your Tatums, your Browns, maybe your Giannis's, at least in terms in theory, right? Putting a bigger body in front of those guys. So I think for the Knicks trying to be serious about where they're going to be this year, that's what it is. But I think it is in essence a 1-year rental for New York to kind of determine their path moving forward. And if this team cannot truly make hay and get a deep run, then you're looking at some changes, probably in a larger proportion with some of those draft picks, and maybe even a Randall or whatever the case to be. Brunson clearly seems to be the guy there, but we'll see what ends up happening with New York. You touched on it here now, so we obviously got to bring it up. As I was perusing, and just kind of doing my NBA thug fizzle, if you will, come across Gordon Hayward appearing on the Podcast P podcast. So Paul George and Gordon Hayward, label mates, if you will, from the draft class. I think they were saying the last 2 guys in that draft class still, actually doing it at an acceptable level. Hayward hurt a little bit here now, but an interesting point about midway through, Gordon reflects on his time in Boston. And something that you even already kind of alluded to, something that I was like, what I saw Jayson Tatum say, I think on JJ Redick's podcast at one point too, is like Terry Rozier was a guy like, damn, we should let him cook a little bit more. But Hayward specifically said that they were clashing, they were butting heads in a way that while they would have the kumbaya moments, so to speak, like, hey, you gotta accept this role and I gotta accept this role. Everyone was like, yeah, but not me. That like it was out 1 year, in 1 year, not the other, kind of in that moment. You said all the right things, but it wasn't really happening. There was multiple team meetings. I'm sure you're around those teams and kind of understood that. And Hayward indicated, sure, that initial injury, that first night against Cleveland, that kind of was rough for him to come back. We can talk about, did Brad show him favoritism, trying to implement him back into the roster, all that stuff, whatever. But either way, the mix of Kyrie, Tatum, and Brown trying to get their own legging in the league going off with Gordon trying to come back, it didn't work out. And I wouldn't say he lamented the time, but he mentions the fact that, especially with Terry there as well too, that there was just too many chefs in that kitchen. Your thoughts reflecting back on that time, those rosters, that team, and why they weren't able to achieve the ultimate success.
Yeah, Warren, that was a crazy year. I mean, they had all the talent in the world and didn't know what to do with it. And I just think that people will want to put it on Kyrie, and it's not all Kyrie's fault, although he deserves some blame. I think it was collective management. I think if you look at the roster, you had, Jayson and Jaylen, and I think the worst thing that probably could have happened, Warren, was the 18 season where Jayson and Jaylen basically barely with facial hair. Jaylen with a flat top, Jayson with no beard and a low fade. I mean, if you look at him, you look at Jayson when he was, in his rookie year, you kind of laugh at how much he's looks different. They led the Celtics to the Eastern Conference Finals, and probably, if not for that 7 for 36 night, Game 7, should have won. I mean, they blew a 3-2 lead. They were one game from the finals with no Kyrie and kind of a half Gordon, right? Because Gordon was coming back from the broken leg. So, was that 17? Or was it Gordon hurt? Gordon, I think Gordon was out too.
The first year.
Yeah, 17. Okay, yeah, 17. So Gordon was out. That was the year he had the broken leg. Okay. So, because I get mixed up on when Gordon signed 16 or 17. I know Al signed in 16, Gordon signed in 17. So, you had Jayson and Jaylen feeling like they were leaders. They were potential leaders in this team. You had Kyrie coming back. And remember, Warren, Kyrie made that promise to the fans, I'll come back if you have me. Then a few months later, he's talking to KD about, man, KD,
who rocks contracts?
What they gonna do, Bo? We can go to Brooklyn and kick it. We can get like what the hell happened? So there was something that changed in Kyrie between October, the season ticket holders scrimmage where they were loud and he announced he that shocked the hell out the organization. They did not ask him to do that. He did it on his own. To February, where he's talking about he plotting his next move. He's thinking of he's Rakim. He's thinking of a master plan. Okay, so that played into it. Kyrie's, what the hell is he going to do? Marcus Morris is playing for a deal. Marcus finally got his 4 and 64 from I think the Knicks, and then got traded for the Clippers. But Marcus Morris is on that team. He's playing for his money. Marcus wants one more. He sees I need to get one more check, one more lucrative deal. Okay, and he got it. So he's playing for that. Rozier is like, listen, I was the point guard on this team when your boy Kyrie was hurt. You ain't gonna give me a shot. Now he had a bad Game 7 in 2018, but he was formidable. Remember, he chunked Eric Bledsoe in that playoff series against Milwaukee. Like, he was rising. Kyrie comes back and he's got to go back down. But Rozier's like, "What's up?
Right.
I'm a baller too. I can run this team probably better than Kyrie because Kyrie ain't all the way there." And then you have Gordon trying to prove he can still play at a high-star level after missing the full season. Al Horford figuring, okay, am I a center or forward? And I probably going to need to go somewhere else because I don't want to play center. So there was, Warren, there was so many agendas on that team. And it wasn't that guys were like selfish, but they all had stuff going on.
That is the perfect word, Gary. That's the exact word Gordon utilized on the podcast.
Yeah.
There's competing agendas.
It wasn't selfish. I didn't see, there weren't jerks in that team, but it was just like, people, it's Kyrie's fault. Kyrie, like, you can say that, but it wasn't all his fault. Now, I don't know what happened that turned him from Boston to Brooklyn. Because remember, he started pushing the theme, I'm coming home, and I'm a kid who grew up in Jersey, and I was a Nets fan, and look at me in a Jayson Kidd jersey in 2003 when I was, 11 years old, and oh my God, and it's going to be amazing to play in front of friends and family. We saw how that worked out in Brooklyn. It did. Okay, it was a disaster. But then that's what I finally get a chance to choose my team. Gordon is trying to prove that he can play, and then people are like, why is Brad giving him minutes over Jaylen? Jaylen feels some kind of way. Jaylen also doesn't get along with Kyrie. That's another element of this. Jayson looks at how Kyrie treats. Remember, when Jayson came to the league, it was the Duke tie, and they had the same agent.
Oh, true.
Okay, Jeff Wechsler, who is still Jayson's agent, no longer Kyrie's agent. But when Kyrie started calling out the young guys in the media, Jayson quietly, in his own way, took a couple of steps back. It was just like, that's not my guy. Okay, don't look at me, Jaylen. Don't look at me, Terry. When that dude starts, that's not me. I'm not doing that. Like, he's talking about me too. So Jayson quietly took a step back from Kyrie and the whole like Duke thing and you're my mentor and all that. That was supposed to be how it went down. It didn't. Jayson quietly, in a stealth way, was like, like everybody take a step forward. Jayson took a step back.
He did the Homer Simpson meme.
Yeah.
I feel you.
Jayson was like, nah, because Kyrie started airing out his issues with his teammates to us. And it was great for us, but you could tell them dudes was like, homeboy, you as much chaos you cause around here, you talking about us? So it was just a lot. It was when you acquire a lot of players, and the Celtics decided they wanted to wheel and deal. They wanted to be the Heat. They wanted to be the Lakers. They wanted to bring all these new guys in. They brought in Al, who was a consummate professional, but didn't want to play center. Then they brought in Gordon, who broke his leg. Then they drafted Terry. Terry's a tough kid from Youngstown, Ohio. Terry's a dog in a good way.
Yeah.
And we see what he's doing in Charlotte. So I ask you, Warren, you can tell me what you think, and the viewers, and send the emails, whatever. Should the Celtics had given Terry the keys in the 1920 season and not signed Kemba? It would have been cheaper. Right? Should they? Because there was a split on Terry. What is he? Is he a point? Is he a shooting guard? Now he's become a shooting guard in Charlotte because LaMelo's there. But now he's running point because LaMelo's hurt. And Terry's turned into a 20-plus point per game scorer, a good shooter, but he's playing on a terrible team, so no one notices. But should the Celtics have given a fresh, what Terry might have been 24?
Yeah, 23, 24. Yep.
As opposed to an aging Kemba whose knee ended up being the detriment of him and kind of ruined his stint in Boston. That's an interesting question that we'll never know, but it's interesting to ask because that whole dynamic with Terry, and Terry didn't dislike nobody. He respected Kyrie, but Terry was like, hold up. I got all-star talent too. And y'all sleeping on me, and it was me on the floor in Game 7 of the Eastern Conference Finals. That run, I don't say it was the worst thing, but it really changed the face of the course of the franchise.
Yeah.
If they lose in the first round, nobody's talking about this. But they didn't. They won 2 playoff rounds, and they were up 3-2 and blew 6 and 7. And 7, it's frustrating. I remember going to the finals that year, covering it just as a reporter, and it was another Cleveland Golden State, and I think everybody was tired of Cleveland Golden State.
Everybody
was just like, come on now, like this ain't gonna work. Everybody couldn't wait for Boston because they would just want to see a new team, and everybody was looking at me, Gary, what happened? We're waiting for the Celtics. Celtics were supposed to be here. It fizzled in Game 7. So that run though changed everything. And it affected the 18-19 team. And Gordon got the hell out of there. Al signed with Philadelphia. Kyrie went to Brooklyn. The Celtics did the sign and trade with Charlotte to get Terry out of there. Marcus Morris went to the Knicks. So it changed everything. And that Milwaukee series, Kyrie had checked out. He was, there was fast breaks where I got Giannis. What?
Yeah, he was wilding. He was definitely.
I got Giannis, and you could tell he couldn't wait for the season to end. And a lot of guys probably were just like, you know what? Gordon got the max from Charlotte. No one expected that. Al got that 4-year, $100 million deal from Philadelphia to be the 4 in, to Embiid, and then they found out he couldn't play with Embiid. So it didn't really work out. I mean, now Terry got paid, but Charlotte's done nothing since he's been there because of that terrible team, terribly run franchise. But it's one of those 30 for 30s, man. I'm sure
Man.
Hopefully I'll get an interview on that thing if they talk about it, because it was amazing to witness that team with all the talent they had. Young Jayson and Jaylen, and we talk about guys like Marcus Morris in his prime. Marcus has lost a little bit now, but Marcus was a very effective player for the Celtics. I thought it was a mistake to let him go, but he got his $16 million. He got his, hey, I'm not gonna get no max, but hell, I'm gonna try to get 60, 70 million out this joint before I get up out of here. He got it. Al got 100. Gordon got 120. And Kyrie, I think they were ecstatic that Kyrie left, because it took a toll mentally on the franchise.
Yeah, Gary. I mean, I think you've given us such great knowledge here in history, of that season, and it was really interesting to hear Gordon kind of waxing poetically and trying to even hold himself back, in terms of trying not to say too much, because maybe not wanting to throw some people under the bus. But he even says, like, I got stories. We had so many meetings, and Brad's forever my guy, but yeah, it just didn't work out. But there is a lot to be there. So I think you've given us an idea for definitely when the times are slower in the NBA, we'll do a what if. We'll do a what if, kind of like the Disney style, of Celtics teams and players and decisions and things of that nature, man. Really great stuff. Before we wrap up here on This Week in Believe in Celtics, let's talk one more topic around the association, ending on what would be a high note, I think, for some Celtics fans out there, hearing that the purple and gold might be in a little bit of disarray. Darvin Ham, Shams reports that, he might be losing the locker room. What can you say to that, in that aspect? Obviously, the Lakers have struggled since the in-season tournament win, hanging the banner for that, et cetera, et cetera. Multiple different starting lineups. Boston has obviously played the Lakers on Christmas, got away with the W there. But just your thoughts on what might be happening here with Darvin Ham, who by most people's account is a player's coach. You see him on the sideline, he's dapping people up. He seems to almost still be one of the guys. But what's happening there in that locker room that you can hear even from your lens, covering the NBA?
Warren, I just don't think that they just have the talent. Like, I just think. And I'm not talking about LeBron, and I'm not talking about AD. Okay, let's put they got 2 top 75 players, and by at the least the second greatest player of all time, who has done everything at age 39 that no other NBA player has ever done at his age. And you could probably only compare him, and we talked about this before, only compare him to a guy like a Tom Brady in terms of his dominance at that age, his significance on his team, his importance to his team. Tom Brady is probably, we can probably go through a baseball pitcher, or, you can go through hockey. I don't know about hockey history like that. There's probably been a 39-year-old to be good, but I can't think of anybody besides Brady and LeBron. But I think the problem is the rest of the guys. Like, you got D'Angelo Russell, who's flaky, as we all know. He's been flaky throughout his career. Gabe Vincent has barely played for them. He helped take the Heat to the finals, was a fantastic player. I've seen him burn the Celtics on many of occasions. He can't get on the floor. Rui Hachimura was, as we know, a lottery pick in Washington, was supposed to be a cornerstone, and then is turned into kind of like a role player.
But Gary, as you mentioned, these guys, why is it being laid at the seat of Darvin Ham?
Because of rotations, and the one thing I think he keeps blaming injuries. Every team is hurt.
Sure,
every team's got the problem with injuries. We're not until we're healthy. And I think, as I've watched other people say, Miami's always hurt. They rest guys for hangnails, and they went into the Staples Center, Crypto.com, and whooped the Lakers without Jimmy Butler, and with guys with Duncan Robinson dropping buckets, and got like they have a program, a system, and the Lakers don't have a system. They have a bunch of guys, and I don't know what they can do, because AD has been healthy mostly, and so is LeBron, and you 17 and 18, and no one else has stepped up as a number 3 guy. Jared Vanderbilt's not a shooter. Taurean Prince is inconsistent. And they brought all these guys in to give them a supporting cast. They're decent defensively, but they can't score. And I just thought watching them in person on Christmas Day, they just didn't have that number 3 guy. You know, and D'Angelo Russell was supposed to be him, and he's not him. And I don't know what they could do. Like, trade a couple of those guys and get Zach LaVine. Is that their answer? Like, let's blow this up. Let's move, let's move some salaries. Let's get rid of, we just signed Hachimura, but let's get him out of here. Because Hachimura is, like, they signed all these guys and now they're not balling.
Yeah. So
in my opinion, I can't blame Darvin besides the excuses he keeps making about injuries. And it's like your role play, you want to say Gabe Vincent and if we had Jared Vanderbilt, we'd be 5 games better or 10 games better.
It's tough though.
It is. It is because you also got Taurean Prince. You also got Austin Reeves. You got some guys on that team. So something ain't working. And the chemistry might not be there. And they had a great run to the in-season tournament, and looked like one of the best teams in the league. They blew out New Orleans. They put away Indiana. They were celebrating, drinking champagne, and putting a banner up. But since then, what's wrong? And they look bad at home. Like, Crypto's supposed to be the place you win ball games, and they're not a good road team. And then to beat Oklahoma City the other day down the road, LeBron had to go for 40. And then they lost that Minnesota game where his foot was across the line. Then they have a back-to-back with New Orleans, and they don't compete. They're just, growing up a Laker fan, growing up in LA, like, the Lakers didn't give games away like that. Magic and them, the Showtime Lakers, even the Kobe Shaq, they didn't give away games like that. They didn't go into New Orleans and go, okay, whoop our ass because we're tired. You got too many damn young guys in the team. It's not LeBron and AD. AD's 31, 32, 31. You don't have a bunch of old guys on the team. It's not like the Lakers from when they had Dwight and Carmelo and LeBron and Russ, when they had when they had the class of 80, the draft class of 08 and 03, and when they had the 2000 guys, when they had the 80s guys out there. No, this is supposed to be a young team because somebody got to step up. People thought might be Austin Reeves. He got his money. Hachimura got his money. D'Angelo got his money. And you know what happens with guys when they get their money. Some of them don't perform after that. The hunger ain't there. And I just see something chemistry-wise isn't right. And as we saw, LeBron did not talk to the media after the Miami loss. He's trying to figure out whether he's going to Pelinka or to Darvin and saying, listen, this who needs to go, this who needs to stay.
Let me ask you this in this closing thought. Who's putting that out there, right? So if Shams reports that, where do you speculate, if you will? And again, it is speculation. We're not trying to get anybody in trouble. Where do you think that's coming from? Is that coming from, another player, so to speak? Is it coming from the infamous LeBron camp, if you will? Where would Darvin Ham might be losing the locker room? Where would that even come from?
It could come from an agent. It could come from someone in the Laker organization, a coach on the staff who sees that it's going, kind of crumbling. Someone who probably shouldn't, in all theory, talk like that, but notices that things aren't going well there, and there's some problems. And I just think there's been problems before. And I think that, you hear Darvin talk, and it's injuries. And it's like, you're the Lakers, man.
Yeah, people want to hear that.
we just talked about a team in 18 and went to the Eastern Conference Finals without Gordon Hayward and Kyrie Irving. I'm not talking about you're gonna win the title without, but your two best players been remarkably healthy. So you're talking about Jared Vanderbilt, you're talking about Gabe Vincent, you're talking about guys who are 6th and 7th men, guys who have been discarded by other teams, because for whatever. Jared Vanderbilt's on his 3rd or 4th team. So Gabe Vincent, the Heat kind of let him go. I'm not saying they could have tried to re-sign him, but I know they were after Dame, and that's I'm sure they wanted him back. But I think they're doing fine without him. So you got to figure this out because LeBron's window is closing. Now, is it another 5 years? It could be another 5 years. But we know it's closing. And the LeBron that we see isn't as often as LeBron that we saw 5-6 years ago. Like, he can't bring it every night like he does. In the Celtic game at Christmas, he was tired. They had just come off that game against Oklahoma City. He just didn't have it. I know he had that injury collision with Jaylen Brown, hurt his knee. He still stayed in the game, but he just couldn't finish. He just didn't have it. And no one besides AD stepped up, so they got smashed.
Yeah, well said, G Money. The Lakers are definitely in a little bit of arrears here, but I'm sure that's much to the delight of a lot of our listeners here on the Blueview Celtics podcast. Well, that'll do it for this week's edition. So much great stuff. We talked Joe Mazzula, we talked Brad Stevens, we talked extensively about the OG Anunoby trade, and did a little what if here, on the 2019 Celtics, man. Great conversations, Gary. Thank you so much, as always. Before we wrap, as always, make sure you follow Gary at GWatchman Globe. Read his articles over there at the Boston Globe. You can follow me at Shot Sports NBA. Make sure you are rating, reviewing, subscribing to everything here, Believe, especially the Believe in Celtics podcast. G Money, we'll definitely catch you next week. My brother, thank you so much. It's been a good one, man. We're out.